It was supposed to be an easy job. Watch a kid for a few hours while the Hendersons went out for dinner. Quiet neighborhood, nice clean house, the usual. I'd babysat for them once before, and nothing was weird that first time. But the second time, everything changed. When I arrived that Saturday night, Mrs. Henderson seemed off, nervous. Her smile looked like it was glued on. "Don't go into the basement," she said suddenly. No context, just that. "We keep all junk down there. It's off limits." I laughed awkwardly and said, "Sure," like it was no big deal. But something in her voice stuck with me. Her husband handed me their emergency contacts, barely made eye contact. Then they both left. Micah, their 6-year-old son, was already sitting on the floor in the living room. Quiet. Too quiet. Just staring at the TV, watching some cartoon with the volume way too low. He didn't even react when I said hi. I sat near him and tried to make small talk. "What do you want to do tonight? Want to play a game?" He didn't answer. I asked again. Nothing. Finally, without looking at me, he said, "The man in the basement talks to me sometimes." I laughed nervously, hoping he was joking. "What does he say?" "He says he used to live here, that he wants to come back." I felt a chill crawl up my neck. I tried to smile, changed the subject, turned up the cartoons. But Micah kept glancing at the basement door, over and over, like he was waiting for something. At 9:17 p.m., I heard it. The basement door creaked. I looked up, and it was cracked open, just an inch. I know I hadn't touched it. "Micah, did you open that?" "No," he whispered. His face had gone pale. "He's angry tonight." Before I could respond, the lights flickered. Once, twice. Then came a loud thump from the basement. Not like something fell, more like something hit the ceiling from below. Micah jumped and bolted upstairs, slammed his bedroom door. I followed him and knocked, but he wouldn't come out. I texted Mrs. Henderson, no reply. At 9:38, I started hearing whispers, real whispers, faint, coming from the basement. I stood in the hallway, trying to make it out. My hands were shaking, my feet felt frozen. But I moved toward the door. I opened it. Stairs, dust, cold air pouring out, and then, clear as day, a single word whispered, right in my ear. "Closer." I slammed the door and locked it. At 10:04, the scratching started. Not mice, not rats. I've heard rodents. This was something bigger. Something with hands, human-sized hands, clawing at the inside of the door. Micah started screaming upstairs. I ran up, and he was pointing out the window. He's outside now. I looked. There was a man standing in the backyard, pale, gaunt, skin stretched tight over bones. No shirt, just torn pants. But the worst part was his face. His eyes were black, not just the pupils, the whole thing, and his mouth, sewn shut, thick black thread, dried blood around the edges. I grabbed Micah and ran downstairs to the living room, tried calling 911, no signal. 10:21, he was inside. I don't know how. All the doors were locked, all the windows shut. But I heard the breathing first, heavy, wet, like someone gasping through mucus. Then came the sound of feet, bare, wet feet, slapping against the tile floor. I shoved Micah under the couch, told him not to move. I turned slowly. He was there, standing in the hallway, tall, crooked, his head twitching side to side like it was too heavy for his neck. He raised his hand, slowly, and pointed at the basement door. "Come home," he gurgled through bleeding stitches. I screamed. At 10:29, the front door opened. The lights turned back on. The Hendersons walked in, calm as ever. The man was gone. Micah crawled out from under the couch, crying. Mrs. Henderson ran to him and hugged him tight, then looked at me, dead in the eyes. "You opened the basement, didn't you?" "There was someone here," I snapped. "He came out of there. He tried to..." She cut me off. "He only comes out when the door is opened," she said, flat, like it was normal. "We keep it locked for a reason." I left, without saying another word. Didn't sleep for 2 nights. A week later, I drove past their house out of curiosity. The basement window was wide open, and someone was standing in it, watching me. It started with a simple text. "Hi, saw your number on the university board. Need a sitter for a few hours tonight. Quick cash, $200. Signed, Lynette Garland. I was 19, broke, tired, and it sounded easy. Watch a kid for a few hours in a quiet North Carolina neighborhood and get paid more than I made in a week at my part-time bookstore job." The house was perfect. Too perfect. Greensboro. Big white porch, trimmed lawn, wind chimes, a golden retriever sleeping on the steps. Picture postcard. Lynette greeted me at the door. Late 30s, thin smile, blonde hair tied tight. She seemed calm, polite, but there was something robotic in the way she spoke. "Logan's already eaten. He's in the playroom. Snacks are labeled in the kitchen. Feel free to watch TV. We'll be back by 11. Her husband barely spoke, just nodded, grabbed his coat, and followed her out. I didn't think much of it at first. Some parents are just stiff. Then I met Logan. He was small, pale, soft-spoken. "Hi," he said, barely above a whisper. We played Candyland. He liked coloring, seemed normal, but even he didn't feel like a real kid. He was too quiet, too still. No laughing, no running. Just polite answers and blank stares. At 7:45, he fell asleep on the couch. I tucked a throw blanket over him, sat down, and opened Netflix. That's when I noticed the cameras, tiny black domes tucked into the corners of the ceiling. One in the hallway, one in the living room, one right above the kitchen sink. I remembered Lynette had said, "The house has security cameras, just for safety." Fine. Nothing illegal about that. But it felt odd. There weren't any kids' toys in the living room, no photos on the fridge, not even a fingerprint on the counters. The house was spotless, sterile. At 8:12 p.m., I got up to make popcorn. As I waited by the microwave, I saw something strange in the reflection. A red light, small, blinking, but not coming from the ceiling cameras. This one was low, hidden. I crouched and peeked behind the spice rack. There it was, a micro lens, like the kind you'd find in a spy store. Definitely not a Ring camera, and definitely not for safety. I looked up, then around. Something was wrong. I walked into the hallway, opened a small closet hoping to find a blanket for Logan. Instead, I found a stack of labeled boxes, women's names written in marker. Emily J., Sarah T., Vanessa H., each box full of personal items, hairbrushes, lipsticks, used tissues, a school ID. None of them belonged to Lynette or Logan. My stomach dropped. I slammed the closet shut, heart hammering. This wasn't a babysitting job. I was being watched, and I wasn't the first. At 8:39, I tried to call my roommate. Zero signal, not one bar. I checked Wi-Fi, locked, no password. I unplugged the router. Nothing changed. I looked again at the living room cameras. This time, I waved at one, just to see what would happen. Nothing. I walked into the guest bathroom to splash water on my face. As I looked in the mirror, I saw something in the vent above me. Shiny, out of place. I climbed up on the toilet and looked closer. A second camera, hidden inside, pointed directly at the toilet. That's when I heard it, a click, behind me. The front door had locked, deadbolt, slid shut. I ran to it and yanked, but it was jammed tight. Back door, same thing. Windows? Screwed shut. I turned to Logan, still sleeping, too deeply. I shook him, no response. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen, heart thudding, adrenaline rising. That's when I heard footsteps, upstairs. But there was no upstairs. This was a single-story house. I followed the sound. Each step made the hardwood creak under my feet. In the far hallway, I found a door I hadn't noticed before. It looked like a closet. But when I pulled it open, there was a staircase, going down. A cold draft came up from the dark, and there was a faint noise, typing, a keyboard, like someone was working down there, watching. I didn't go down. I grabbed Logan, who was groggy but awake now, and said, "Let's play a game. Outside game. No talking." He blinked, nodded. I pulled him to the front door. Deadbolt, now suddenly unlocked. I didn't question it. I opened the door and ran, barefoot, holding him against my chest. We didn't stop until we reached a neighbor's porch. They called the cops. The house was empty when they got there. But in the basement, dozens of hidden cameras, all wired to a control panel. Files, folders, videos, some recent, some old. And in a locked drawer, IDs, lipsticks, underwear, journals, dozens of them, all from previous babysitters. The couple's names, Lynette and Garland, were fake. No records, no social security numbers, burner phones. The car they left in was stolen. And Logan? Logan's real name was Isaac. He had been abducted from Nevada 2 years ago. The authorities believed they used him, like bait, to lure in sitters, film them, exploit them, sell the footage. And when they were done, they disappeared. My face was already in one of those boxes, labeled, ready, but I made it out. Barely. The house was small, clean, a little too quiet. Not a single car passed by as I pulled up. The lawn was trimmed, the porch light was flickering faintly, and everything about it felt off. But $100 for 4 hours? I needed the cash. The woman, Laurie, opened the door fast, like she'd been standing there already. She looked rushed, breath short, hair up in a messy bun. Tired face, but polite. She held the door open with one hand, a purse dangling on the other. Sorry, everything's ready. She's fed, changed, brushed. You just have to hang out till bedtime. I stepped in. The place smelled like lavender and dust. Old wallpaper, faint music playing somewhere deeper in the house, like a jewelry box stuck on repeat. Laurie gestured behind her and said, "That's Emma. She's 6. Emma peeked from behind the couch. She didn't smile, didn't wave, just clutched a doll to her chest and stared at me with huge, glassy eyes. Laurie kissed her head quickly, tossed me a spare phone number in case of emergency, and said, "She'll tell you what she needs. Be back by 10. Then she was gone. Fast. Emma didn't speak right away. She just turned and walked toward the living room like this was routine. I followed. That's when I saw them. The dolls. Dozens, no exaggeration, lined across the couch, on top of the TV stand, balanced on windowsills. Some were porcelain, others stuffed, but all had something wrong. Crooked limbs, cracked eyes, one even missing a mouth entirely. "Do you like dolls?" Emma asked. "They're cool," I lied, trying not to stare too long at any of them. She nodded once, then said quietly, "You're not really babysitting me tonight. You're babysitting them." She pointed at each one. whispering their names like an old nursery rhyme. That's Charlotte. She's shy. That's baby Molly. He's Mr. Sleepy. And that one. She pointed to a large, old porcelain doll sitting in a high chair in the corner. That one keeps me safe. It was easily the creepiest doll I'd ever seen. Stained, lace dress, hair matted, like it had been wet at some point. One eye was painted shut. The other? Way too wide. Black lashes like tar. Its hands rested in its lap like it was waiting for something. You mean she's your favorite? I asked. Emma shook her head slowly. No, she protects me from the bad man. I didn't know what to say to that. I laughed nervously. Emma didn't. At 7:45 p.m., I went to the kitchen to grab water. As I passed the hallway, I heard whispering. I stopped. Emma's voice. I peeked back around the corner and saw her sitting very close to the porcelain doll in the high chair. She was talking to it, whispering in its ear. She doesn't know yet. Should we tell her? Or wait till she touches one? I stepped into the room quickly. Emma turned and smiled like nothing was wrong. But something shifted. In the air? In the pressure of the room, like I had walked in on something secret. At 8:12, Emma asked if she could sleep in the living room instead of her bedroom. I don't like being far from them, she said. I said, okay. She laid out the dolls gently, tucked them in with tissues and scraps of cloth. She told me I had to sit on the couch and watch them while she slept, so they'd behave. I was scrolling TikTok, trying to zone out, when I glanced at the doll in the high chair. Its eye, the one that was half shut earlier, was now fully open. Maybe it had always been that way, maybe not. At 8:44, I took a photo of the room, just for my private story. No caption, just something weird. But when I looked at the photo, my stomach dropped. The porcelain doll's eye reflected light, not like glass, like a lens, a red dot. I zoomed in. My hands started shaking. It looked exactly like a hidden camera. I put my phone down and walked slowly toward it. Emma was curled under a blanket, silent. I picked up the doll. It was heavy, too heavy for a toy. I turned it around and found a seamless zipper on the back of the dress. I hadn't noticed it before. I slowly opened it. Inside was a battery pack, wires, a blinking red light. I held the doll's head gently and tilted it forward. Inside the eye socket, behind the painted iris, was a tiny hidden camera, facing out. My throat went dry. This wasn't a doll. It was a spy tool. I stepped outside fast to call the cops. No signal. Tried using the Wi-Fi. It was locked. I looked around and noticed something else. No neighbors. The house next door was boarded up. Across the street, driveways cracked. No lights in windows. Not even mailboxes. This wasn't a neighborhood. It was a trap. I turned around to go back in and found Emma standing in the doorway, staring at me. She told you, didn't she? I swallowed hard. Who? She pointed to the doll in my hand. She said you weren't supposed to look. Emma, I said, kneeling down. Who put this camera here? Emma leaned in, voice barely a whisper. Mommy's boyfriend. But he's not here tonight. Not yet. He watches from far away. Then he picks the ones he likes. I grabbed my bag and picked her up without another word. Ran barefoot down the street, heart pounding, until I reached a lit gas station 2 blocks away. Called the cops. When they arrived at the house, it was empty. No dolls, no Emma, no furniture. Just a foldable camping chair, Wi-Fi routers, and wireless transmitters hidden in the vents. They found 3 more cameras, one in the bathroom vent. The house had been rented under a fake name. No trace of Laurie. No registered birth certificate for a girl named Emma. But when the detectives pulled the memory cards, they found videos, dozens, hundreds, each file named by date, each one showing a sitter, sitting alone, watching dolls, and always a girl whispering to a doll, "She doesn't know yet."